Coastal erosion is the wearing away of material along a shoreline, and on the Virginia Eastern Shore, this is driven primarily by waves, and these waves are driven by storms. All storms bring waves, but it's actually your smaller storms, your low energy but more frequent storms that are driving waves that break immediately on the marsh edge and eat away at the sediment there. There's a lot of population growth and valuable infrastructure along Virginia's eastern shore that coastal landowners want to protect. UVA has been working out here to characterize marsh vulnerability to erosion and see what lines up to be the most vulnerable shoreline. We see seawalls, we see bulkheads, but there are several trade-offs associated with hardened structures.
When waves come in and hit those hardened structures, they reflect off of that, and that energy tends to scour out the bottom, making the water in front of your structure even deeper, and that deeper water actually allows more and more wave energy to approach the shoreline. So we have to come up with other solutions.
Living shorelines are a nature-based shoreline stabilization technique that's designed to control erosion while maintaining ecosystem functions. They're made of materials like natural vegetation, artificial oyster reefs. The oyster reef takes away energy from the wave and causes its height to decrease, impacting with less energy, causing less erosion. The Nature Conservancy and the University of Virginia work together to try to get the best information to the coastal communities, offering shoreline stabilization recommendations so that they're more resilient and can better adapt to coastal hazards.
Having these reefs here helps to make the edge of our marsh more resilient, and by having these big, wide, healthy marshes, they can help to make our communities more resilient.
There are a ton of people who are relying on the Chesapeake Bay and the Eastern Shore for their livelihood, and I know that my science will have an impact on the coastal community here at the Virginia Eastern Shore. To be able to serve them in this way, I feel very proud to be a part of the effort.
If you can imagine, like about halfway down here, a steep bank, about in line with the existing shoreline on either side. There's a steep cut, erosion cut bank. If you look in hydrology, this area here is referred to as the cut bank because that's where the erosion occurs. When the water's coming in, it naturally tends towards the outside of the curves like that. And so the opposite bank would be called, I think it's the deposit bank, or there might be another name for it, but this is definitely the cut bank. And that would have kept up. That erosion would have kept up back and back and back. So the concept of the living shoreline is to grade. Number one, you grade the slope back to what would be a normal, there's no real highland over there, but if you a normal grade back, it's about a 2-to-1 kind of a grade that I think that they try to maintain on this. And then the erosion's still going to occur, so you try to protect it, and that's what the stone sill is all about out in the front. the stone over to the side, that's just to, that's a natural drainage area, so it had nothing to do with living shoreline. It was just erosion control means. And the definition, when you're building a shoreline, the Commonwealth has all this stuff figured out, you know, between Commonwealth of Virginia and Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, VIMS. They've come up with a plan that where that sill is to be placed relative to low water, high water, how high it is supposed to be, and also the fact that you'll notice there are two. It's hard to notice the second one because it's right under
I was
the
going to
pier.
say the opening.
But there's a little opening there that allows natural flow of water. You'd get sort of flow of water through the rocks, and you do, but this allows flushing, real flushing. And then after you grade the slope, put the stones in, and then you come up with a planting plan. And so the sprigs that you see in there are Spartina alterniflora. I think it has a new Latin name now, but that's what the old name was. And that will fill in just like you see the similar grass on the other side of the stone.
And so if we have another major kind of storm and it comes in here and comes way up, is it going to hold as a barrier, supposedly?
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing about living shorelines, not this one in specific, but all living shorelines. The top of the stone is supposed to be at what is the mean high water marker, just a little bit below mean high water. So during a storm, you know, the water may indeed be up to the top of this slope. So it's not really going to prevent anything down there. It's the day-to-day erosion. You know, the storm events are, you know, pick a number, however many times a year, like 10 storms a year. I don't know what it is, but it's the daily erosion. You know, the other 355 days that you have potential for erosion every day. This is very expensive. Living shoreline is not a cheap alternative or an option for a homeowner. But it's oddly enough, putting in a bulkhead, which no one, especially the Commonwealth, doesn't recommend, is expensive also. Putting in just stone to protect the bank. They could have, where this bank was 4 feet of vertical, you could have filled the front of that in with stone. In the form of a revetment, a strengthening of the shoreline. As well, okay, so everything now is living shoreline, and I mean the Commonwealth has really gotten behind living shoreline. It's more or less this or nothing kind of a thing. You have, as a property owner, the first thing you have to tell us, the board, the county wetlands board, is why you're not putting in a living shoreline. And there are a lot of good reasons for not doing it, but you have to present that way. You have to show that you considered this, and that, you know, what are your reasons. One of the big reasons here, especially on the bay side, is the fetch, the distance that the wind blows unimpeded in a straight line. And if that is more, I forget the exact number, but more or less more than a mile, it's sort of dicey for a living shoreline, because it's just too much. You know, the chances of having big waves are much higher than like here, where you have, you know, your fetch is 100 feet if or whatever that is. If the wind comes out of this direction, it's a little bit longer if it comes right up the creek or right down the creek. So, but still within sensible numbers to call this an okay place to do it, or an ideal place to do it.